There are words of Jesus that were never preached from any pulpit, whispers of truth hidden between the lines, echoes that do not call for belief, but for awakening. The world has heard the sermons, the parables, the moral lessons, yet behind them lies a far deeper message, one not meant to be followed blindly, but lived through direct experience. Imagine this. What if the true teachings of Jesus were never about religion, but about remembrance? Not the defense of a doctrine, but the awakening of a divine frequency within every human being. For centuries, fragments of his words have been lost, edited, mistranslated, or buried beneath layers of interpretation. And still, the essence remains, scattered through the Gospels like sparks, waiting to reignite the flame of consciousness. A message not about worshiping the messenger, but about discovering the same light within yourself. Because when Jesus said, "The kingdom of heaven is within you," he was not speaking in metaphor. He was revealing a science of consciousness, an alchemy of spirit that transcends religion itself. Few understood it then. Fewer practice it now. But what if those unspoken words still vibrate in the silence of your soul, waiting to be heard again? What if the forgotten teachings of Christ were never lost, only sleeping within human awareness? In this journey, we are not here to preach. We are here to decode, to unearth what the church could not contain, what time could not erase, the living wisdom hidden in plain sight. By the end of this journey, you may discover that the words of Jesus that were never preached were not meant for your ears, but for your awakening. To understand the words of Jesus that were never preached, we must travel backward, far beyond the stone walls of cathedrals and the ink of canonized scripture. Before Christianity became a religion, it was a mystery school, and Jesus was not merely a preacher, but an initiate of the deepest cosmic truths, a bridge between matter and spirit. In the deserts of Judea, long before his public ministry, there existed secret communities, the Essenes. They lived apart from the world, in silence, prayer, and sacred study. Many scholars believe that Jesus was raised among them, immersed in teachings that blended Hebrew mysticism with Egyptian, Persian, and early Eastern wisdom. Their focus was not on worship, but transformation. They taught that divine light could be awakened within, that every human being was a temple of the infinite. From these roots, the young Jesus absorbed an understanding of creation, not as a physical event, but as a vibration, a divine utterance, still resonating through all life. He learned that the true path to God was not upward to the heavens, but inward, to the still point within the heart where the Eternal speaks. But when his words began to challenge the hierarchies of power, both religious and political, they became too dangerous to preserve in their pure form. After his death, as his followers spread across the ancient world, those mystical teachings were divided, filtered, and restructured. The Council of Nicaea, centuries later, would decide which Gospels survived and which were silenced forever. The Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Mary, the Gospel of Philip, texts filled with inner teachings, were hidden, buried in the sands of Nag Hammadi for nearly 2,000 years. And what did they reveal? That Jesus spoke of knowing God, not believing in him. That the kingdom he described was not a future paradise, but a state of awakened awareness, available now. That salvation was not the reward for obedience, but the realization of unity between the human and the divine. This is the Jesus few have heard, the mystic, the teacher of consciousness, the revealer of inner gnosis. His true language was not dogma, but frequency. Every word he spoke was a seed of light, carrying the vibration of a truth that cannot be written, only remembered. Yet history has a way of taming its mystics. What could not be understood was labeled heresy. What could not be controlled was buried. And so, the outer religion survived, but the inner science of awakening faded from the collective memory of humankind. But now, as humanity begins to seek truth beyond tradition, these forgotten words begin to rise again, like hidden scrolls unfolding within the soul. They whisper the same message the Essenes once guarded, the Gnostics once practiced, and the Master himself once lived. That the divine is not distant. It is you. And the words of Jesus that were never preached are the map back to that realization. To truly practice the words of Jesus that were never preached, we must first unlearn what we think we know about him. Because what Jesus offered was not a religion. It was a technology of consciousness. Every phrase he spoke carried a hidden formula, a vibrational code designed to awaken the divine remembrance within the listener. When he said, "I and the Father are one," it was not a declaration of superiority. It was an invitation. He was showing humanity its own reflection, saying, "You too are the spark of the infinite." But to those trapped in fear and hierarchy, this truth was too vast, too liberating to be controlled. So it was replaced by belief systems that made divinity external, something to be worshipped, not realized. The unspoken teaching of Jesus was this: to find God, stop searching outward. When he withdrew into solitude, when he meditated in the wilderness, when he spoke of the secret place of the Most High, he was describing an inner sanctuary, a dimension of stillness within the heart, where the Creator and creation are not two, but one breath. This was not new wisdom, it was ancient. Long before Jesus, the mystics of Egypt, India, and the East had taught that divine power resides in the inner temple of awareness. But Jesus translated this truth into language the world could feel, through parables, through compassion, through miracles that revealed the natural law of consciousness. That what you believe, you create. What you speak, you manifest. And what you love, you become. He said, "If you have faith as a mustard seed, you can move mountains." But this was not a metaphor for religious faith. It was a key to energetic mastery. He was teaching that thought and emotion, aligned with pure intent, can alter reality itself. Faith, in his true sense, was frequency, the vibration of knowing, unshaken by doubt. This is why he could calm storms, heal the blind, and raise the dead, because he understood that reality responds to consciousness. He was not breaking nature's laws, he was revealing them. Yet his greatest miracles were not in the outer world, but in the transformation of the human heart. He turned despair into peace, hate into compassion, death into awakening. Because the true resurrection was never about the body, it was about consciousness rising from the tomb of illusion. The Church spoke of crucifixion and salvation, but Jesus spoke of transcendence. The cross was not only an instrument of death, it was a symbol of alignment, the meeting point between heaven and earth, spirit and matter, the vertical and the horizontal. It represents the moment when the soul surrenders the illusion of separation and becomes one with divine will. And in that surrender lies the hidden commandment never preached: be still and know that I am God. Not I, the person, but the I that exists within all life, the eternal presence behind every face, every breath, every heartbeat. These are not just words to recite, they are codes to embody. Each phrase of Jesus, when meditated upon deeply, can open gateways within the mind, and awaken remembrance in the soul. They are not instructions to follow, but frequencies to resonate with. And this is where the true practice begins, not in churches, but in consciousness itself, not through worship, but through alignment. Because to practice the unspoken words of Jesus is not to believe in him, it is to become what he realized. To go deeper into the words of Jesus that were never preached, we must venture beyond interpretation, into experience. Because these teachings are not ideas to be discussed, they are states of being to be entered. When Jesus spoke in parables, he was encoding universal truths within the language of the time, veiling sacred knowledge in stories so that only those with ears to hear would understand. He was a master of spiritual encryption, and what he hid was nothing less than the formula for awakening. Consider his words. The light of the body is the eye. If your eye be single, your whole body shall be full of light. Most take this as poetic metaphor, but in esoteric tradition, the single eye refers to the inner vision, the awakening of the third eye, the pineal gateway through which divine perception flows. When one's awareness becomes single-pointed, no longer divided by judgment, fear, or desire, then the veil of duality dissolves, and through that still, single eye, one sees the truth, that all things are one in God. This was the heart of the secret teaching, the unity behind all opposites. The ancients called it the law of one. Jesus called it the kingdom within. In the Lost Gospel of Thomas, he says, "When you make the two one, when you make the inner as the outer, and the outer as the inner, and the above as the below, then you will enter the kingdom. Here lies the essence of all mystical paths, the reconciliation of duality, the merging of spirit and matter, heaven and earth, masculine and feminine." The kingdom is not a place, it is a state of integration. To practice this is to live without separation, to see no enemy, no other, no division between sacred and mundane. It is to see God in the beggar, the stranger, the storm, and the silence. It is to awaken to the realization that everything you encounter is a mirror of your own consciousness. But the world feared this idea, because if each soul carries the spark of divinity, then no priest, no ruler, no structure of control can stand between humanity and God. So the mystical was buried under ritual, the inner truth replaced by outer obedience. And yet, despite all efforts, truth cannot be destroyed. It can only be forgotten. And what is forgotten can always be remembered. The unpreached teachings of Jesus are the bridge between the seen and unseen, the physical and the infinite. When he said, "Seek and you shall find, knock and it shall be opened," he was not referring to a door of wood or stone. He was describing the inner gate, the doorway of awareness that opens only through sincerity and silence. To knock is to turn your attention inward. To seek is to listen beyond the noise of thought. And to find is to remember that what you were searching for was never lost. He spoke too of love, not sentimental affection, but cosmic compassion. Love your enemies, he said, not as moral instruction, but as vibrational mastery. Because love is the highest frequency in existence, the resonance that dissolves the illusion of separation. To love even those who oppose you is to align yourself with the eternal field of unity, where no conflict exists. That was the secret alchemy behind every miracle. Transformation through love, not resistance. And this is why his final command was not "believe in me," but "follow me." To follow, in the ancient sense, meant to walk in the same vibration, to live in alignment with the Christ consciousness, the eternal light that shines through all beings. This was the path of the living Christ, not a person, but a state of consciousness, beyond birth and death. A flame that has burned through every age, under many names. And though the outer words were hidden, the vibration remains in every heart willing to listen in silence. Because the true sermon was never spoken, it was transmitted. And when your mind becomes still enough, when your heart becomes clear enough, you will hear it, not as sound, but as recognition. The same truth whispered through every prophet, every mystic, every awakened soul. You are not separate from God. You are the living expression of God remembering itself. The ancient words of Jesus were never meant to remain carved in stone or bound in scripture. They were meant to breathe through you. His teachings were not commandments to obey, but frequencies to embody. And so, to practice the words that were never preached is to turn your life itself into a living gospel. It begins with silence. Jesus often withdrew from the crowds to pray alone in the wilderness or on mountaintops. He understood that divine truth cannot be heard in the noise of the world. It reveals itself only in stillness. So each day, find a moment to enter that silence. Close your eyes. Breathe. Shift your awareness from the outer to the inner. Listen, not to thoughts, but to the quiet space behind them. There, in that stillness, the same presence that guided him will begin to speak through you. The second practice is seeing through unity. When he said, "Love your neighbor as yourself," he wasn't describing morality. He was describing vision. To love as he loved is to see the divine in every being, even in those who wound you. It is to recognize that every soul you encounter is another facet of the same infinite source. When you practice this perception, the barriers between me and you begin to dissolve, and life itself becomes a dialogue between God and God. The third practice is alignment through word. Jesus understood the creative power of speech. He said, "By your words you are justified, and by your words you are condemned." Every word we speak shapes the vibration of our reality. So speak as he did, with awareness, with purity, with intent rooted in love. When your words carry truth, compassion, and clarity, they become instruments of creation rather than reaction. The fourth practice is faith as frequency. Faith, in its deepest sense, is not belief. It is resonance. It is the unwavering knowing that all things are already whole in the unseen, waiting to take form. When Jesus healed, he did not hope. He knew. And that knowing became reality. So when you pray, do not beg for outcomes. Instead, align with the energy of already having received. Feel gratitude before the miracle occurs, and you will draw it into being. The fifth practice is forgiveness as liberation. Forgiveness is not about condoning, it is about clearing. It is the release of energetic cords that bind you to pain. Jesus said, "Forgive, not 7 times, but 70 times 7, meaning endlessly. Because forgiveness is not for others, it is for your own freedom. Each time you forgive, you reclaim your energy from the past and return to the present, the only place where God truly lives. And finally, the highest practice of all, embodiment. To walk, breathe, and act from the awareness that the kingdom of heaven is within you. When you face anger, respond with peace. When you face fear, answer with love. When you face uncertainty, stand in the knowing that the light within you is eternal. This is not passive spirituality. It is the active embodiment of Christ consciousness. These practices do not require a temple or a priest. They require your presence, your willingness to turn your attention inward and let divine awareness live through your humanity. Over time, something miraculous begins to happen. Your perception shifts. The same world remains, but you begin to see it as he did, not as fallen, but as sacred. You begin to understand that heaven was never elsewhere. It was simply unseen through the eyes of separation. To practice the words of Jesus that were never preached is to remember who you are, to let the veil fall away, and to live not as a seeker, but as one who has found. The words of Jesus that were never preached were never truly lost. They were not hidden in scrolls or locked away in temples. They were written in the silence of the human heart. They have been waiting patiently for the world to grow quiet enough to hear them again. For centuries, we looked to heaven for answers, not realizing that heaven was the awareness looking through our own eyes. We searched for salvation in belief, not knowing that the act of searching was the veil itself. But now, as consciousness awakens across the earth, the ancient vibration of those words stirs once more. They do not call us to worship, but to remember. Remember that the divine does not exist somewhere above. It breathes through every atom of existence. Remember that the light you seek was never separate from you. It is the essence of what you are. Remember that the kingdom of God is not a promise to come. It is a reality to awaken to now. When Jesus said, "Follow me," he was not asking for obedience. He was extending an invitation to walk the same path of realization, to live from the same inner flame that no darkness can extinguish. To follow him is to live as he lived, awake, compassionate, fearless, free. And so, the true sermon of Christ was not spoken, it was embodied. It moves through every act of forgiveness, every moment of stillness, every breath taken in awareness. To practice these unspoken words is to become a vessel through which the divine expresses itself in the world once again. As you walk your path, carry this remembrance with you. You are not the seeker, you are what is sought. You are not the candle, you are the flame. You are not separate from the Christ. You are the continuation of his consciousness through time. And so, the question is no longer, what did Jesus say? But rather, what is he still saying through you? Because the words of Jesus that were never preached were never meant to be heard with the ears, but remembered with the soul.